Change. It's the word everyone wants, but the process no one wants to face. We talk about changing our habits, our circumstances, our lives, but rarely do we talk about changing ourselves, because that's the hardest part. It's easy to wish for a better job, a healthier body, a clearer mind, a stronger relationship. But the truth is this: nothing changes until you do. We spend so much time trying to fix what's around us, the people, the situations, the conditions, that we forget where the real transformation begins. It doesn't start out there. It starts in here, in the way you think, the way you respond, the way you see yourself. Every major shift in life begins with an inner decision, a quiet, personal declaration that says, I will no longer live on autopilot. I will take ownership of my life. That's where everything begins to change. This audiobook is about that moment. The moment you decide to stop waiting for life to get better, and instead start becoming better yourself. Because growth isn't a miracle. It's a mindset. It's 1,000 small choices. To take responsibility instead of making excuses. To act with discipline instead of waiting for motivation. To move forward even when you're unsure of what's ahead. Maybe you've been feeling stuck. Maybe you've tried changing your environment, your routine, even the people around you. And yet, something still feels the same. That's not failure. That's feedback. It's life telling you that real transformation doesn't happen when you switch directions. It happens when you change internally. When your thoughts begin to align with your values. When your habits start to reflect who you truly want to become. When your peace matters more than your pride. That's when change becomes real. Here's a truth that most people avoid. It's not the world that's holding you back. It's who you've accepted yourself to be within it. You become what you repeatedly believe. You attract what you think you deserve. And you stay where your habits keep you. If you want a different life, you have to start making different decisions. The kind that challenge your comfort. The kind that stretch your patience. The kind that require discipline even when no one's watching. This journey isn't about becoming someone else. It's about returning to who you were meant to be before fear, doubt, and disappointment got in the way. The version of you that believed, that tried, that cared deeply, that wasn't afraid to start again, that version is still in there, waiting for you to lead again. In this audiobook, you'll learn how to shift your focus inward, to take back control of your thoughts, your emotions, and your reactions. You'll learn why change always starts small and with awareness, with acceptance, with intention. And you'll learn how to stay consistent when progress feels slow, how to stay patient when results don't come fast, and how to rebuild momentum when life feels heavy. Because true transformation isn't loud. It's quiet. It's steady. It's the decision you make every single morning to show up, to grow, and to keep going. Nothing changes until you do. That's not a warning. It's an invitation to step into your power, to stop waiting for someone to save you, to stop blaming circumstances, timing, or luck, and to start realizing that you are the most powerful variable in your own life. Every choice you make, every thought you nurture, every action you take, they all build your tomorrow. The question is, what kind of tomorrow are you building? In the chapters ahead, you'll learn to see change not as a destination, but as a practice, something you do daily, intentionally, imperfectly. You'll learn how to let go of who you were yesterday, so you can become who you're meant to be today. You'll understand why discipline is a form of self-love, why discomfort is a teacher, and why the first step toward growth is always the hardest, because it requires you to leave behind the version of yourself that no longer fits. So if you're ready to stop talking about change, ready to stop waiting for the right time, ready to take ownership of your life, then this audiobook is for you. Because the truth is simple. You are not stuck. You are simply resisting the change that's waiting for you. But the moment you decide to act, to grow, to rise, the moment you choose change, life begins to shift with you. This isn't just about improvement. It's about transformation. Not the kind that happens overnight, but the kind that builds you into someone stronger, wiser, calmer, and more focused than ever before. So take a deep breath. Let go of the weight of yesterday and step forward, because nothing changes until you do. And this, right now, is where that change begins. Chapter 1. The Mirror of Change. Change always starts with a mirror. Before you can transform your life, you have to face the truth about where you are and who you've been. Not the version you show the world, not the one filtered by excuses or pride, but the real one, the one you meet in silence when it's just you and your thoughts. That's where change begins, with honesty. Most people say they want to change, but what they really want is for life to get easier while they stay the same. They want new results without new effort, better outcomes without better habits, peace without letting go of what causes the chaos. But life doesn't work like that. If you want transformation, you must first tell yourself the truth. Even when it hurts, the mirror doesn't lie. It shows you your patterns, your excuses, your avoidance, your potential. And the hardest part isn't seeing what's wrong. It's accepting that it's you who has to fix it. Change doesn't come from wishing things were different. It comes from realizing you are the common denominator in every experience of your life. Your choices, your mindset, your habits. That's not blame. That's power. Because if you're the reason something isn't working, then you also have the power to make it right. Here's the truth. You can't heal what you won't face. You can't outgrow what you refuse to acknowledge. And you can't move forward while holding on to denial. Every meaningful breakthrough begins with a moment of brutal honesty. That moment when you look in the mirror and finally say, I am responsible. I can do better. And I will. Facing yourself doesn't mean criticizing yourself. It means becoming aware. Aware of your behaviors, your triggers, your beliefs. It means observing the patterns that keep you stuck. Because awareness is the foundation of growth. You can't change what you can't see. And once you see it, you can never unsee it. That's where transformation begins. Not in doing more, but in understanding why you do what you do. Take a moment to think about it. How often do you repeat the same habits, say the same things, make the same excuses, and then wonder why nothing changes? It's not bad luck. It's not life being unfair. It's the loop you've built. One you can only break by stepping outside of denial and into awareness. The mirror of change is uncomfortable because it shows you the truth you've been avoiding. But the truth will always set you free, if you let it. Here's a story. A man named Adrian spent years blaming everything around him for his unhappiness, his job, his relationships, his circumstances. He'd say, if my boss were better, I'd be motivated. If people appreciated me more, I'd be happier. If I had more time, I'd work on myself. But deep down, he knew none of that was true. One night, exhausted from his own complaints, he stood in front of the mirror. He looked at himself, really looked, and said quietly, I have been waiting for the world to change while refusing to change myself. That sentence broke him, and then built him, because that was the moment he stopped pointing fingers and started taking control. That was the night he began to change. Change begins the moment you stop asking, why me? And start asking, what now? That shift, from victim to leader, from complainer to creator, is what separates those who stay stuck from those who grow. The mirror doesn't judge, it just reflects. And what it reflects is opportunity, because once you see your patterns clearly, you have the power to rewrite them. Here's something powerful to remember. The version of you that created your current life cannot create the next one. You can't take your old habits into your new season. You can't expect transformation while clinging to the mindset that needs it. That means parts of you. Old fears, outdated beliefs, lazy routines, unhealthy attachments must be released. And yes, that's uncomfortable. Because the ego doesn't like being wrong. It wants to protect the identity you've built, even if that identity keeps you stuck. But freedom comes when you stop defending your limitations. The mirror asks for accountability, not shame. When you take responsibility, you're not saying everything is your fault. You're saying, even if it's not my fault, it's still my responsibility to respond differently. That's growth. That's ownership. That's what maturity looks like. When you stop blaming others, you stop giving them power. When you stop making excuses, you stop giving your obstacles authority. When you stop lying to yourself, you start living in truth. And truth is the soil where real change grows. You are the common thread in every chapter of your life. Every success, every failure, every lesson. And once you see that clearly, you stop looking for heroes. You become one. Because the mirror doesn't show you what's wrong with your life. It shows you what's possible when you decide to lead it. Here's something worth remembering. Life is not waiting to get easier. It's waiting for you to get stronger. And that strength doesn't come from comfort. It comes from awareness, responsibility, and courage. Awareness to face the truth. Responsibility to take action. Courage to keep going. That's how winners are built. Not through perfection, but through accountability. You may have made mistakes. You may have stayed too long where you didn't belong. You may have betrayed yourself trying to please others. That's okay. You can't change your past, but you can learn from it. And the mirror, the honest reflection of your choices, isn't there to shame you. It's there to guide you back to yourself. Every scar has a story. Every mistake has meaning. And every moment of awareness has power. Here's a truth few people are brave enough to accept. Your life right now is a reflection of your standards, not your intentions, not your wishes, your standards. Whatever you tolerate, that's what you live with. Whatever you expect from yourself, that's what you rise to. So if you want more, expect more from the person in the mirror. Raise your standard for how you think, how you act, and how you show up. That's how you begin to change your reality, from the inside out. Here's the irony of change. The moment you stop running from yourself, you start running toward your potential. And once you start moving in truth, the world begins to rearrange itself around your new direction. Because life doesn't respond to what you want. It responds to who you are. So here's your challenge for today. Find a mirror. Look yourself in the eyes, not for a few seconds, but long enough to feel uncomfortable. And instead of judging what you see, ask a simple question. What part of me do I need to change to become who I'm meant to be? Then listen, because deep down, you already know the answer. That's where the work begins. That's where the excuses end. That's where transformation takes root. Nothing changes until you do. But once you do, once you decide to be honest, accountable, and intentional, everything around you begins to shift. Your relationships, your energy, your opportunities, your peace. Because the mirror never lies. It only reflects who's ready to rise. Chapter 2. Breaking the loop of excuses. Excuses are the most convincing lies we tell ourselves. They sound logical. They sound harmless. But over time, they become the invisible walls between who we are and who we could be. Excuses are comfort disguised as reason. They keep us safe. Not from failure, but from growth. And as long as you believe your own excuses, you'll stay exactly where you are. Every person who feels stuck is living inside a story. Not the story of what happened to them, but the story they keep repeating about why they can't change. I'm too busy. I don't have enough money. I'll start when I'm ready. I'm not like those people who succeed. Every excuse sounds different, but they all end the same way, with nothing changing. Here's the truth. Excuses are emotional armor. They protect your ego from discomfort. When you make an excuse, what you're really saying is, I don't want to feel the pain of discipline, so I'll choose the comfort of delay. But that delay is expensive. Because every time you justify inaction, you reinforce the belief that you're not capable. And belief, not effort, is what shapes your reality. Excuses don't sound evil. They sound reasonable. That's what makes them dangerous. Your mind is clever. It will always find a way to protect your comfort zone. It will rationalize procrastination as rest, fear as logic, and laziness as self-care. But the truth is simple. You're not protecting yourself when you make excuses. You're limiting yourself. Think about it. The person you want to become already exists, but they live on the other side of your excuses. Every time you say, I'll do it later, you're voting against your future self. Every time you say, I can't, you're teaching your brain to stop looking for solutions. Every excuse is a signal, a reminder of where growth is being avoided. Here's a story. A woman named Elena always dreamed of starting her own business. She had talent, passion, and ideas, but never took the leap. For years, she told herself the same line, now's not the right time. Then one day, her mentor asked, how many more years will you hide behind that sentence? That question shattered her illusion of someday. She realized there was no perfect time, only time wasted waiting for perfect conditions. So she began, scared, unsure, imperfect. And slowly, the excuses faded as confidence grew. Because action kills excuses faster than motivation ever will. You can't think your way out of an excuse. You can only act your way out. Waiting for the perfect moment is just another delay tactic. The best time to start is the moment you realize you've been stalling. Because once you take one small action, momentum begins to build. And momentum is stronger than fear. Excuses are easy to make because they feel justified. You tell yourself, I don't have time. But the truth is, you haven't made time. You say, I'm not ready, but readiness isn't a feeling, it's a decision. You say, I'll do it when things calm down. But life never calms down. You have to. Excuses trick you into believing your circumstances are the problem. But the real problem is your commitment to staying the same. Here's a powerful truth. The gap between your goals and your results isn't knowledge, it's execution. You already know what to do. You just don't do it. And the reason is almost always an excuse. The voice that says, I'll start next week. The one that says, it's not worth it. The one that says, I've tried before, it didn't work. That voice doesn't belong to your potential. It belongs to your fear. And fear will always sound reasonable if you listen to it long enough. You don't have to eliminate excuses overnight. You just have to stop believing them. Every time you hear that internal voice of resistance, pause and ask yourself, is this true or is this comfortable? That one question can change everything. Because once you stop treating excuses as facts, they lose their power over you. Here's something most people never realize. Excuses are addictive. The more you make them, the easier they come. And like any addiction, they numb you from truth. You stop noticing how much of your life they're stealing, how many opportunities you've said no to out of habit, how many times you've stayed small because it felt safe. The first step to breaking that addiction is awareness. Start catching yourself in the act. Notice when you're choosing comfort over change. Notice when you're making your dreams wait for your fear to subside, because awareness breaks the pattern. Here's another story. A man named Victor wanted to lose weight. For years, he told himself he couldn't because his schedule was too demanding. But one day, his friend said, your schedule isn't the problem. Your priorities are. That line hit him hard, so he stopped making excuses. He started small, walking 10 minutes a day, then 20, then 30 months later, he had lost the weight. Not because he found time, but because he stopped lying to himself about not having any excuses. die in the presence of responsibility. You can't hold both at the same time. You either defend your excuses or design your life, and the moment you choose responsibility, you take back your power. It's not about guilt. It's about ownership. When you own your life, you stop waiting for miracles and start making movement. There's a pattern to excuses. They always start with, I can't, or I'll try. I can't means you've already lost before starting. I'll try means you've left yourself an escape route. Winners remove both from their vocabulary. They replace them with I will, because I will builds momentum. And momentum doesn't wait for motivation. It creates it. Here's the key. Your brain believes what you repeatedly tell it. So when you say I can't, your brain stops searching for solutions. When you say I will, it starts looking for ways to make it real. That's why language matters, because words don't just describe your world, they define it. Ask yourself this: what excuse have you been repeating for so long that it now sounds like truth? Is it, I don't have enough time? I'm not confident enough? I don't know where to start? Whatever it is, remember, it's not a limitation. It's a story, and stories can be rewritten. Excuses are rooted in fear of failure, rejection, or disappointment. But what if you failed and learned? What if you got rejected and grew stronger? What if you took a chance and surprised yourself? Most of the fears behind your excuses never actually happen. And even if they do, you're strong enough to handle them. The pain of trying is temporary. The pain of regret is forever. Here's your challenge. Every time you catch yourself saying, I can't, replace it with, how can I? Every time you say, I'll try, replace it with, I'll do. Every time you say, not now, say, now. Train your mind to look for possibility, not permission, because once you remove excuses, what's left is power, pure, unstoppable power. Excuses feel safe. Action feels scary. But only one leads to change. And here's the paradox. The moment you stop waiting for the right conditions, you create them. That's what successful people understand. They don't make excuses. They make adjustments. They don't say, I can't. They say, I'll find a way. That's how progress is built. That's how confidence grows. That's how change begins. So today, make a promise to yourself. No more excuses. No more waiting. No more stories that keep you small. You don't need perfect timing. You need a clear decision, because nothing changes until you do. And excuses are the first thing that must go. Chapter 3. The cost of comfort. Comfort feels good, and that's what makes it dangerous. It's soft, familiar, safe. It gives you the illusion of peace, even when it's quietly stealing your potential. Most people don't fail because they aim too high. They fail because they get too comfortable where they are. Comfort is the silent killer of dreams. It never announces itself, never demands attention. It just slowly convinces you that where you are is good enough, but comfort has a cost. And if you're not careful, it will cost you everything you could have been. Every person who's ever achieved something meaningful had to walk away from comfort, because comfort and growth cannot coexist. Comfort says, stay here, it's safe. Growth says, go there, it's better. And every time you choose comfort over growth, you choose the illusion of safety over the reality of progress. You may think staying comfortable protects you from pain, but in truth, it only trades short-term ease for long-term regret. The pain of effort is temporary. The pain of stagnation lasts a lifetime. And one day, you'll realize the hardest part of change wasn't taking the leap. It was staying in a place that no longer fits who you're becoming. Here's the truth most people avoid. Your comfort zone isn't just physical. It's mental, emotional, and spiritual. It's the place where your fears feel justified, your habits go unchallenged, and your potential stays hidden under the weight of, I'm fine. But I'm fine is the enemy of excellence. I'm fine is where dreams go to die quietly. Comfort tells you stories to keep you still. It says, you don't need to work that hard. It's too late to start now. You're doing okay. Others have it worse. But deep down, you know the truth. You know when you're settling. You know when you're coasting. And you know when you're capable of more. The question is, are you willing to do something about it? Here's a story. A man named Leo worked in the same job for 12 years. He was good at it, reliable, efficient, comfortable. But inside, he felt restless. He had dreams of starting his own business, of building something meaningful. Every year he told himself, I'll do it next year. But next year always came with new reasons to stay. A little more money, a little more security, a little more comfort. Until one day he realized something terrifying. He wasn't making a living anymore. He was just making excuses. That realization hurt. But it was the pain he needed, the pain that finally pushed him to move, because comfort will always hold you until discomfort sets you free. Comfort isn't evil. It's just seductive. It offers you temporary peace, but demands permanent potential in return. It says, rest here, when you should be saying, rise now. And the longer you stay there, the harder it becomes to leave, because comfort builds roots. It builds routines. It builds an identity. Before long, you stop dreaming and start defending the life you've settled for. The truth is, growth is uncomfortable because it's supposed to be. It stretches your mind, it challenges your habits. It exposes your fears, but that discomfort isn't punishment. It's progress in disguise. If it feels hard, it means you're expanding. If it feels scary, it means you're evolving. If it feels unfamiliar, it means you're finally moving towards something real. Think of a muscle. If it's not challenged, it weakens. If it's pushed, it grows. Your mind works the same way. You need resistance to build strength. You need struggle to build character. You need discomfort to build discipline. So the next time life feels hard, don't ask, why is this happening to me? Ask, what is this teaching me? Because behind every uncomfortable moment lies a version of you that's stronger, wiser, and more capable. Comfort is deceptive because it looks like peace. But peace and comfort are not the same thing. Peace is earned through alignment. Comfort is built through avoidance. Peace requires work, confronting fears, setting boundaries, doing what's right. Comfort requires nothing, just surrendering to what's easy. So ask yourself, are you at peace or are you just comfortable? Because one will build you and the other will quietly break you. Here's another story. A woman named Maya had been in a relationship for years that no longer made her happy. It wasn't bad. It was just empty. She told herself it was fine because it wasn't terrible. She said things like, everyone has problems and at least it's stable. But one day she realized stability isn't the same as fulfillment. She wasn't afraid of being alone. She was afraid of being uncomfortable, so she left. Not because it was easy, but because she knew staying would cost her more in the long run. That's the price of comfort. It protects you from pain, but it also prevents you from purpose. Growth always requires a trade. You must be willing to give up who you were for who you could become. That's the price of progress, and it's always worth it. Because the cost of comfort is far greater than the pain of change. When you avoid discomfort, you also avoid discovery. The discovery of your strength, your discipline, your potential, and those are the very things that give life meaning. Here's the truth. Every dream demands a version of you that doesn't exist yet, and that version cannot be born in comfort. It's forged in effort, in uncertainty, in courage. It's built in the moments you keep showing up when it's hard, when no one notices, when quitting would be easier. That's where transformation happens. Not in comfort, but in commitment. You don't need to destroy comfort entirely. You just need to manage it. Use comfort as recovery, not as residence. Rest there, but don't live there, because comfort isn't the goal. It's a checkpoint. You pause there to breathe, to reflect, to recharge, but then you move, because staying too long in comfort turns rest into regret. Here's something to remember. Discomfort is the language of growth. It's how the universe signals that you're evolving. So when you feel uncomfortable, you're not doing something wrong. You're doing something right. You're stepping into new territory. You're expanding what's possible. Discomfort is just your potential stretching into reality. Here's your challenge. This week, do one thing that makes you uncomfortable. Intentionally. Speak up when you'd normally stay silent. Start the project you've been avoiding. Take the first step toward the change you've been delaying. It doesn't have to be dramatic. It just has to be different, because different is how growth begins. Comfort is easy to love, but hard to leave. It will whisper, you've earned a break when you've barely begun. It will tell you, you're safe here when you're actually stuck. So the next time you feel yourself settling into ease, ask, is this peace or is this fear pretending to be peace? The difference will tell you everything. Nothing changes until you do, and that includes your relationship with comfort. Growth is uncomfortable. Discipline is uncomfortable. Honesty is uncomfortable, but so is regret. So is disappointment. So is living a life that never stretched far enough to meet your potential. You have to choose your discomfort. One leads to growth. The other leads to decline. Choose wisely. Chapter 4. The Power of Responsibility. There's a moment in every person's life when they realize something powerful. No one is coming to save them. Not luck, not timing, not the right person or the right opportunity. Just you, your decisions, your discipline, and your direction. That realization can feel heavy, but it's also freeing. Because when you take full responsibility for your life, you also take back your power to change it. Responsibility is the foundation of freedom. It means understanding that while you can't control everything that happens to you, you can always control how you respond. That's what separates those who grow from those who remain stuck. Victims wait for change. Leaders create it. And the difference between the two is one simple choice. Ownership. Here's a truth few people want to hear. As long as you keep blaming others for your circumstances, you're handing them power over your life. You're saying, I can't move forward until they do something different. I can't heal until they apologize. I can't grow until life gets easier. But waiting for someone else to do what only you can do is the slowest form of self-destruction. Taking. Responsibility doesn't mean taking blame. It means taking control. The moment you say, this is my life and I will shape it, everything changes. Because responsibility isn't a burden, it's a key. It unlocks growth, clarity, and confidence. It turns chaos into direction, and it transforms every obstacle into an opportunity to respond with strength. Here's the paradox of growth. The more responsibility you accept, the lighter life becomes, because when you take ownership, you stop fighting reality. You stop resisting what is and start working with what's within your control. That's how winners move. They don't waste energy wishing things were different. They focus on what they can do now with what they have. Here's a story. A man named Nathan had spent most of his life blaming others for his failures. His boss was unfair. His friends were unsupportive. His family didn't believe in him. He carried resentment like armor. One day, his mentor asked him, "If everyone else is the problem, what's the one thing they all have in common?" That question cut deep. He realized that he was the constant in every situation, and the only person who could change the pattern was him. That day, Nathan stopped blaming and started building. Not overnight, but one decision at a time, because responsibility doesn't demand perfection. It demands action. Most people fear responsibility because they associate it with guilt. They think taking responsibility means admitting weakness. But it's the opposite. Responsibility is power. It's the moment you stop being a passenger in your life and take the wheel. It's the realization that while you can't rewrite the past, you can still write the next chapter. Blame keeps you stuck. Responsibility moves you forward. Blame looks backward. Responsibility looks ahead. Blame says, "It's not my fault." Responsibility says, "It's still my future." That's the difference between waiting and winning. Here's something worth remembering. Life will never be completely fair, but it will always be yours. And that means you get to decide what happens next. When you take responsibility for your thoughts, you start thinking differently. When you take responsibility for your emotions, you stop reacting impulsively. When you take responsibility for your actions, you start creating results instead of excuses. Responsibility is the bridge between intention and transformation. Here's another story. A woman named Claire struggled with procrastination. She blamed her job, her stress, her lack of motivation, but deep down she knew the truth. She just wasn't prioritizing growth. One day, she wrote a simple sentence in her journal: "I am the reason I'm not where I want to be." It hurt, but it also freed her, because once she accepted that truth, she realized she was also the reason she could get there. That's the gift of responsibility. It doesn't just reveal what's wrong. It reminds you what's possible. Responsibility is not about control. It's about influence. You can't control everything that happens to you, but you can influence how it affects you. You can't control other people's choices, but you can control your boundaries and your reactions. And over time, those small decisions compound. They become the difference between a life that happens to you and a life you consciously create. Most people underestimate how much power they have. They assume life is random, a mix of luck, timing, and fate. But the truth is, your habits are your fate. The way you think, the way you show up, the way you respond, that's what shapes your world. Every decision is a vote for the person you're becoming. Every excuse is a vote for the one you're leaving behind. Responsibility means you vote consciously. Here's something powerful. Every time you say, "It's my responsibility," you reclaim something life tried to take from you. Peace, focus, self-trust. Because the moment you take ownership, you stop feeling powerless and start feeling capable again. Responsibility restores confidence because it puts you in motion. It reminds you that no matter what happens, you always have a choice in how you respond. There's freedom in that. Freedom from resentment. Freedom from dependency. Freedom from waiting for someone else to fix what only you can face. You stop saying, "I hope things get better," and start saying, "I'm going to make them better," and that mindset alone can change your entire life. Responsibility doesn't mean doing everything alone. It means being honest about what's yours to carry and what's not. You can't control every outcome, but you can control your effort. You can't force people to change, but you can choose whether they stay in your circle. You can't predict every storm, but you can prepare your mindset to handle it. That's the kind of power responsibility gives you. Quiet, steady, unshakable power. Here's a practice you can start today. When something goes wrong, pause. Before reacting, ask yourself, what part of this can I take responsibility for? Focus on solutions, not blame. Blame keeps you stuck in the past. Responsibility brings you back to the present. Take small ownership daily. Clean your space. Follow through on promises. Finish what you start. Every small act of responsibility builds self-trust, because self-trust is built through proof. Proof that you do what you say you will do, and that's what makes responsibility so powerful. It creates credibility with yourself. When you live responsibly, you stop chasing control and start cultivating peace. You stop waiting for a perfect plan and start trusting your progress. You stop seeing life as something that happens to you and start seeing it as something you are actively creating. That's the real freedom responsibility gives. Not power over the world, but mastery over yourself. Here's your reminder. You are not responsible for everything that happens to you, but you are responsible for what you do with it. You can let it break you. You can let it define you, or you can let it build you. And when you choose the last one, when you choose to rise instead of react, you unlock a strength that no one can take away. Responsibility doesn't make life easier. It makes you stronger. It builds the kind of resilience that doesn't depend on luck, and the kind of confidence that doesn't need permission. Because once you realize you're in charge of your future, you stop waiting and start creating. Nothing changes until you do. And one of the biggest changes you'll ever make is deciding to stop being a passenger in your own life. Take the wheel. Own your path. And drive forward, even if the road is uncertain. Because once you embrace responsibility, you stop wishing for change and start becoming the person who makes it happen. Chapter 5. Rebuilding self-trust. You can't build a strong life on a weak foundation. And the foundation of everything, success, confidence, peace, is self-trust. Self-trust is the quiet knowing that you will do what you say you'll do. It's the inner strength that whispers, no matter what happens, I can count on me. But when you break that trust, when you make promises to yourself and don't keep them, something inside you starts to fracture. And that fracture doesn't just hurt your confidence, it distorts your identity. Every time you say you'll start and don't, you teach your mind not to believe you. Every time you say you'll change and quit halfway, you confirm the lie that you can't. And over time, that pattern erodes the deepest part of your power, your faith in yourself. That's why self-trust isn't built on motivation. It's built on follow-through. Most people think confidence comes from achievement, but it doesn't. Confidence comes from alignment, from doing what you said you would even when it's inconvenient. Every small promise you keep is a brick in the foundation of self-trust. And every broken one chips away at it. You don't lose trust in yourself all at once. You lose it, one compromise at a time. Here's the truth. You don't need more discipline. You need more honesty. Stop telling yourself you'll change tomorrow. Stop setting goals that you already know you won't keep. It's better to promise little and deliver much than to promise everything and deliver nothing. Because integrity with yourself matters more than impressing others. Self-trust grows when you prove, not just hope, that you can rely on you. That means keeping small commitments. Waking up when you said you would. Finishing what you start. Choosing consistency over convenience. These seem simple, but they're powerful. Because every time you follow through, you tell your subconscious, I mean what I say, and that belief changes everything. Here's a story. A woman named Isabel spent years starting over. Every January, she'd make new resolutions, new diets, new routines, new affirmations, and every March, she'd quit. One day, she looked at her reflection and said, I don't even believe myself anymore. That hurt more than failure ever did. So she made a different kind of promise, a smaller one. She told herself, just walk for 10 minutes every day. That's it, and she did, day after day, without excuses. Some days, she didn't feel like it, but she walked anyway. Not for results, but to rebuild her word with herself. Weeks turned into months. Her walks got longer. Her belief grew stronger. Because confidence is not built in grand moments. It's built in quiet consistency. You don't rebuild self-trust overnight. You rebuild it moment by moment, decision by decision, through small wins that accumulate like compound interest. Each one says, I can depend on me. And the more you prove it, the more unstoppable you become. Here's something to remember. You can't trust someone who always breaks their promises. So why expect yourself to be different? If you constantly let yourself down, your mind learns not to take you seriously. That's why you hesitate. That's why you doubt. That's why you procrastinate. You're not lazy. You just don't trust your own words anymore. And the only way to fix that is to start keeping promises. Again, no matter how small they are. Start with one daily commitment, something achievable, something you can do even on your worst days, then build from there. Because success doesn't come from doing everything at once. It comes from showing up again and again until your actions match your intentions. That's when your confidence returns. That's when you stop needing motivation because you've built momentum. Here's another story. A man named Marcus once said he wanted to write a book. For years, he told everyone about it, but he never wrote a single page. Every time he thought about starting, his mind whispered, you won't finish anyway. He had built a reputation with himself, and it wasn't a good one. So one day, he decided to change that. He didn't aim for a book. He aimed for one page, every day. At first, it felt pointless. One page isn't much. But after 30 days, he had 30 pages. After 6 months, he had a manuscript. And after a year, he had proof that he could trust himself again. The book wasn't the real victory. The real victory was silence. The silence of that voice that used to say, you won't. Self-trust is built the same way a relationship is, through consistency and honesty. When you lie, it weakens the bond. When you follow through, it strengthens it. And just like any relationship, it takes time to rebuild what you've broken. You can't demand trust. You have to earn it. And one of the biggest lies people tell themselves is, I'll start when I feel ready. But waiting for readiness is another form of self-betrayal. You'll never feel completely ready. You just have to start and prove to yourself that you can adapt. That's how trust grows, not through planning, but through proof. When you trust yourself, you stop chasing validation. You stop needing everyone else to agree with your choices. Because you know that whatever happens, you'll handle it. That's real confidence, not arrogance, not perfection. Just grounded, quiet belief in your ability to figure things out. Rebuilding self-trust changes the way you walk through life. You stop negotiating with your goals. You stop explaining your worth. You stop letting fear dictate your direction. You start keeping promises. You start respecting your word. You start moving like someone you can rely on. That's when everything changes. Because the world reflects the way you treat yourself. Here's your challenge. For the next 7 days, pick one thing you'll do, and do it no matter what. Wake up at the time you said you would. Write one page. Meditate for 10 minutes. Go for that walk. Don't aim for perfect. Aim for proof. Because proof builds belief, and belief builds trust. Every time you follow through, you're teaching yourself, I am someone who finishes. I'm someone who shows up. I am someone I can count on. And that belief, that quiet certainty, it will carry you further than any external motivation ever could. Remember this. You don't need to rebuild who you are. You just need to rebuild your faith in who you are, because the person you're trying to become isn't waiting for you to find more motivation. They're waiting for you to keep more promises. Nothing changes until you do. And it all begins with one commitment: to never abandon yourself again. Chapter 6, the discipline of action. Discipline is not about perfection. It's about direction. It's not about doing everything right. It's about showing up, even when it's hard, even when it's boring, even when no one's watching. Discipline is what turns dreams into progress. It's what separates the people who wish from the people who win. Because without action, even the best mindset means nothing. Motivation feels good, but it's temporary. Discipline is what carries you when motivation disappears. Anyone can act when they feel inspired. Few can act when they don't, and that's what defines growth. Doing what needs to be done, especially when you don't feel like it. The truth is, your life doesn't change when you want it to. It changes when you work for it, consistently, deliberately, day after day. Discipline is the bridge between your goals and your results. It's what turns someday into today. Here's something most people don't realize. You're always disciplined. The question is what you're disciplined about. Some are disciplined at avoiding discomfort. Some are disciplined at overthinking. Some are disciplined at staying stuck. But when you learn to redirect that same energy toward purpose, your entire life changes, because discipline isn't about force and it's about focus. Here's a story. A man named Jordan wanted to get in shape. Every few months, he'd get motivated, go to the gym, and quit after a week. He thought the problem was motivation, but the problem was consistency. One day, his coach told him, stop chasing intensity, chase consistency. It's not about how hard you work once, it's about how often you show up. That line changed everything. Jordan stopped going for perfect workouts. He focused on just showing up. Some days, he lifted heavy. Some days, he barely made it through, but he never missed. And months later, he realized something. Discipline had done what motivation never could. That's the secret. Success doesn't come from doing things occasionally with passion. It comes from doing them consistently with purpose. Discipline builds momentum. Momentum builds belief. And belief sustains effort. That's the cycle of growth. Discipline is an act of love, not punishment. It's how you prove to yourself that your future matters more than your feelings. Because if you always wait to feel ready, you'll wait forever. The truth is, you don't have to feel good to take action. You just have to take action to start feeling good. Here's another story. A woman named Lila dreamed of becoming a writer. Every time she sat down, she found an excuse. I'm tired. It's not the right time. I need to be inspired. Then one day, she decided to write just one paragraph a day. No matter what. At first, it felt small. But one paragraph turned into a page turned into chapters. And 1 year later, she had finished her first book. Not because she was inspired, but because she was consistent. Discipline built what inspiration never could. Most people think discipline is harsh. But in reality, it's freedom. When you live without discipline, you're controlled by your moods, your distractions, your impulses. When you live with discipline, you're free. Free from chaos. Free from regret. Free from being pulled by every emotion, because discipline gives you structure, and structure gives you peace. Here's something powerful. Discipline is a choice between what you want now and what you want most. Every decision you make either strengthens or weakens your future. And the more disciplined you become, the less negotiation you have with yourself. That's what mastery looks like. Doing what's right without needing to debate it every time. Think of your life like a garden. Motivation is like the rain. It comes and goes. Discipline is like the soil. Steady, supportive, dependable. You can't control when it rains, but you can choose to keep watering your plants anyway. That's how success grows, one consistent drop at a time. The hardest part of discipline isn't the effort, it's the repetition. Doing the same things every day feels boring, but that's how excellence is built. Because repetition creates rhythm, and rhythm creates results. Every habit you build rewires your brain. And the more you repeat, the easier it becomes. At first, discipline feels forced. Then it becomes familiar. Eventually, it becomes automatic. That's when it becomes who you are. Here's the truth. Discipline doesn't eliminate emotion. It manages it. You'll still feel tired, doubtful, and distracted. But discipline teaches you to act anyway. That's strength. Not the absence of emotion, but the mastery of it. You'll know you've grown when you stop waiting to feel inspired. When you wake up, don't check how you feel. Check what needs to be done, because feelings follow actions, not the other way around. You don't wait to be confident to speak. You speak and confidence follows. You don't wait to be motivated to start. You start and motivation grows. Action creates emotion. Discipline creates action. That's how progress is born. Here's a practice. Simplify your goals. Don't chase 10 things at once. Pick one and master it. Set clear rules for yourself. For example, I don't skip workouts. I don't negotiate with my bedtime. Rules remove the decision fatigue that kills progress. Keep promises in silence. You don't need to announce discipline. Live it. Quiet effort builds loud results, because discipline doesn't seek attention. It seeks alignment. Here's a story about a runner. Every morning before sunrise, she runs 5 miles. Not because she loves running, but because she loves who she becomes after. One day, her friend asked, "How do you stay so motivated?" She smiled and said, "I'm not motivated. I'm disciplined. That's the difference." Motivation fades. Discipline endures. Discipline is a form of self-respect. It says, "I care about my future enough to do what's necessary." It's not about being hard on yourself. It's about being honest with yourself. Because discipline without compassion becomes punishment. But discipline with purpose becomes power. Here's your reminder. You won't always feel ready. You won't always see results immediately. You won't always get applause. But if you keep showing up, you'll look back one day and realize the small steps were never small at all. They were everything. Because progress isn't made in leaps. It's made in discipline. The quiet, repetitive, often unseen kind that builds character long before it shows results. Nothing changes until you do. And nothing sustains change like discipline. It's not about doing more. It's about doing what matters most. Every day, without excuses. Without delay, because the discipline of action is what turns I wish into I did. Chapter 7. Letting go of control. We spend so much of our lives trying to control everything. Our outcomes, our timing, other people, even life itself. We tell ourselves that if we can just plan perfectly, worry enough, or hold tight enough, everything will finally fall into place. But control is an illusion. And the more you try to force life to go your way, the more it resists. True power doesn't come from control. It comes from surrender. Surrender doesn't mean giving up. It means giving in, to trust. It means doing your best and releasing what's beyond your reach. It's understanding that some things are meant to unfold naturally, not through force, but through faith. Because the truth is, you can't control outcomes. You can only control your input. You can't control how people treat you, but you can control how you respond. You can't control what happens next, but you can control what you focus on now. You can't control every storm, but you can choose how you walk through it. That's where real strength begins. Here's the paradox. The more you try to control everything, the more anxious you become, because control is rooted in fear. The fear that if you don't hold everything together, it will all fall apart. But life doesn't fall apart because you release control. It begins to flow. When you let go, you create space. Space for growth, for peace, for clarity. Here's a story. A man named Elias planned every detail of his life. He had schedules, strategies, goals, everything neatly mapped out. But life didn't care about his plans. A job loss, a breakup, an unexpected illness. Everything he tried to control collapsed at once. At first, he panicked. Then something inside him shifted. He realized he couldn't plan his way out of chaos. He could only trust his ability to navigate it. So instead of asking, "Why is this happening?" he started asking, "What is this teaching me?" And for the first time, he felt peace. Not because everything was fixed, but because he stopped fighting what was. Control gives you the illusion of safety, but it often keeps you stuck, because when you cling too tightly, you leave no room for growth, no room for surprises, no room for grace. You try to control people and end up losing connection. You try to control outcomes and end up losing joy. You try to control the future and end up losing the present. The tighter you hold on, the less you live. Letting go doesn't mean doing nothing. It means doing your best and allowing life to do the rest. It's about effort without attachment, action without obsession. You still plant the seeds. You still work hard, But you stop demanding that everything bloom on your timeline, because sometimes the delay is the lesson. Sometimes what feels like a setback is really protection. And sometimes what you think you're losing is exactly what's making room for something better. You can't control the weather, but you can adjust your sails. You can't control other people, but you can control your boundaries. You can't control time, but you can control how you spend it. When you accept this truth, life becomes lighter, because you stop wasting energy on what's not yours to carry. Here's something worth remembering. You don't have to have everything figured out to move forward. You just need faith, not in everything going right, but in your ability to handle it when it doesn't. That's maturity. That's growth. That's letting go. Control feels powerful in the moment, but it slowly drains your spirit, because it's exhausting to manage what was never yours to manage. You can't control other people's opinions. You can't control who stays or who leaves. You can't control every outcome, no matter how much you try. And when you finally accept that, when you finally stop trying to force life, you make room for peace. Here's another story. A woman named Ava had been trying to fix everyone, her partner, her family, her coworkers. She believed that if she just tried hard enough, she could make everyone happy. But in trying to fix others, she lost herself. One day, her therapist asked her, "What if you stopped managing everyone else's emotions and started managing your own?" That question changed everything. Because control often comes from care. We want things to go well for everyone. But when care turns into control, it becomes chaos. Ava stopped trying to fix others and started focusing on herself. And what she discovered was peace. Not the kind that depends on others, but the kind that comes from letting them be who they are. Letting go doesn't mean you don't care. It means you care without clinging. It means you love deeply, but without trying to possess. It means you dream big, but without demanding the outcome. It means you show up fully, but without needing to control the result. That's real power, to move forward with intention, but without desperation. Here's the truth. Life rarely goes according to plan. The people you thought would stay might leave. The doors you wanted might close. The opportunities you prayed for might not arrive. But in time, you realize it all unfolded exactly as it needed to, because the lessons you didn't want were the ones that made you who you are. When you stop trying to control life, you start participating in it. You start noticing beauty again. You start feeling gratitude. You start flowing instead of forcing. And ironically, that's when things begin to fall into place. Not because you forced them, but because you finally aligned with them. Here's a practice for this week. Write down what you can control and what you can't. Be honest. Most of what you worry about isn't yours to manage. Release one thing. Choose one worry, one fear, one situation. Let it go, not mentally, but emotionally. Trust your process. Remind yourself daily, I am doing my part. Life will handle the rest. This is not blind optimism. It's emotional discipline. It's the strength to stop gripping and start growing. Here's something you need to hear. You're not failing because things aren't going exactly as planned. You're just being guided somewhere better. Sometimes life delays what you want to give you what you need, and the sooner you trust that, the sooner you find peace, even in uncertainty. Letting go is not weakness. It's wisdom. It's the ability to say, I don't know how this will turn out, but I trust myself to handle it. That's what growth sounds like. That's what maturity feels like. That's what peace looks like. Nothing changes until you do. And one of the most powerful changes you'll ever make is learning to stop controlling everything and start trusting the process instead, because control is about fear. Trust is about faith. And when you move with faith, life moves with you. Chapter 8. Healing through acceptance. Healing doesn't begin when the pain ends. It begins when you stop fighting it. Acceptance is not weakness. It's wisdom. The quiet realization that some things can't be changed, only understood. You don't heal by pretending everything's fine. You heal by admitting it isn't, and by choosing to grow from what broke you instead of running from it. Because acceptance isn't about giving up. It's about letting go of the illusion that the past could have gone any other way. There's a peace that comes when you finally stop asking, why me? And start asking, what now? Because healing isn't about finding all the answers. It's about learning how to live fully, even with the questions that remain. We spend so much energy trying to rewrite what's already happened. We replay conversations. We imagine different outcomes. We cling to what ifs, but the truth is, the past doesn't need to be fixed. It needs to be faced, and once you face it, it loses its power to control you. Here's a story. A man named Daniel carried anger for years. Someone he trusted had betrayed him deeply, and though time passed, he couldn't let it go. Every time he thought about it, his chest tightened. His mind would replay the pain like a movie on repeat. One day, a friend told him, "You're drinking poison and waiting for them to feel it." That moment changed everything. He realized forgiveness wasn't about freeing the other person. It was about freeing himself. So he stopped waiting for an apology and started giving himself permission to move forward. He didn't forget. He didn't excuse it. He simply accepted it, and in that acceptance, the anger finally loosened its grip. Acceptance is not approval. It doesn't mean you agree with what happened. It means you refuse to let it own you anymore. You can acknowledge pain without surrendering to it. You can face the past without living in it, because what you resist persists, but what you accept transforms. Here's the truth. You can't heal what you keep avoiding. You can't release what you won't acknowledge. And you can't move forward while constantly looking backward. Healing requires courage. The courage to stop running, to sit with your pain, to listen to what it's trying to teach you, because pain always has a purpose. But you can only hear it once you stop trying to silence it. Here's another story. A woman named Sophia lost her job unexpectedly. She felt like her world was ending. Her identity, her confidence, her plans. For weeks, she fought the situation in her mind. This isn't fair. This shouldn't have happened. Why me? But one morning, she woke up and whispered to herself, "This is where I am. I can't change that. But I can change what I do next." That sentence became the turning point. She stopped resisting her reality and started responding to it. Within months, she had started her own business, something she had dreamed about for years but never had the courage to begin. Because acceptance doesn't trap you, it frees you. It doesn't say, "This is how it will always be." It says, "This is where I am right now, and I can work from here." Healing through acceptance isn't about forgetting the past. It's about releasing your attachment to what you thought it should have been. Sometimes closure doesn't come from the outside. It comes from within, from the moment you decide that peace matters more than perfection. We all have moments we wish we could redo, words we wish we hadn't said, people we wish we hadn't lost, chances we wish we had taken. But regret keeps you chained to a version of yourself that no longer exists. You can't heal if you keep punishing yourself for being human, so forgive the person you were. They were learning. They were surviving with what they knew. You can't become who you're meant to be if you keep resenting who you used to be. Acceptance doesn't mean the pain disappears. It means the pain stops defining you. It's the moment when you can think about the past and feel peace instead of bitterness, understanding instead of anger. That's how you know healing has begun. When your memories stop hurting and start teaching. Here's something to remember. The hardest part of healing isn't moving on. It's letting go of the idea that it should have been different. Because deep down, healing is not about erasing your story. It's about owning it. Your wounds don't make you weak. They make you real. They make you wise. They make you whole. Here's a simple truth. You can't move forward and look backward at the same time. Acceptance is that quiet decision to stop turning around, to stop reopening the same chapter and finally start writing a new one. It's not about closure from others. It's about giving closure to yourself. Here's your practice for this week. Acknowledge what hurts. Don't run from it. Write it down. Speak it out loud. Let it exist. Separate what's yours from what isn't. Not every burden is meant for you to carry. Some belong to time. Say these words to yourself. This happened. I can't change it, but I can choose what it means to me. That simple sentence is one of the most powerful healing affirmations in the world, because acceptance doesn't erase pain and it transforms it into purpose. Here's another story. A man named Aiden carried guilt for years about something he couldn't undo. Every time he started to feel happy, guilt would whisper, "You don't deserve this," until one day he realized punishing himself wasn't the same as taking responsibility. He couldn't change what had happened, but he could change how he lived from that moment on. He decided to live in a way that honored the lesson. That was his redemption. That was his peace. Acceptance didn't erase the past and it redefined it. Healing through acceptance is not a single moment. It's a process. Some days you'll feel light, other days you'll ache again. That's okay. Healing is not linear. It's cyclical. You revisit pain until it teaches you what it needs to. But every time you face it, you grow stronger. Every time you accept it, you reclaim more of your peace. Here's your reminder. You don't need to fix everything to be whole. You just need to stop fighting yourself. Life doesn't require perfection. It requires presence. And once you stop trying to control what's already written, you can finally start living what's ahead. Nothing changes until you do. And one of the most profound changes you'll ever make is learning to accept what was so you can embrace what is. Because acceptance is not the end of healing. It's the beginning of freedom. Chapter 9. Becoming the person you needed. There comes a moment in every journey when you realize you can't go back and change who hurt you, but you can become the person you needed when you were hurting. That's where true healing happens. Not in erasing the past, but in transforming it. Because pain, when used right, doesn't destroy you. It shapes you. It gives you empathy. It makes you strong enough to become someone else's light. And your own. We all have moments that changed us. Moments that made us feel small, unseen, unworthy. Times when we begged for someone to understand, to show up, to stay. But now, as adults, it's not about waiting for someone to give us what we never received. It's about giving it to ourselves and to others. That's what growth is. That's what becoming whole means. You can't rewrite your childhood. You can't erase the heartbreak. You can't undo the betrayal. But you can stop letting those things define who you are now. You can choose to become the calm you once prayed for, the support you once needed, the strength you once lacked. You can be your own rescue. Here's the truth. When you begin to heal, you stop chasing love and start embodying it. You stop waiting for people to validate your worth and start showing up as someone who already knows it. Because becoming the person you needed isn't about perfection. It's about presence. It's about being grounded enough to comfort the parts of you that no one else could handle. Here's a story. A woman named Elise grew up feeling invisible. Her parents rarely listened. Her achievements were met with silence. She learned early that love had to be earned. As an adult, she kept repeating that pattern, chasing people who gave her attention only when she performed. But one day, she realized something simple yet powerful. The little girl inside her didn't need applause. She needed acknowledgement. She needed to feel safe. So Elise began to show up for herself. She started journaling, celebrating small wins, talking to herself with kindness instead of criticism. And slowly, she stopped chasing love. Because she started becoming it. Healing isn't about proving others wrong. It's about proving to yourself that you're right, that you were always worthy, always enough, even when others couldn't see it. You can't change how people treated you, but you can change what you believe because of it. That's the power of becoming the person you needed. You stop being a victim of your story and start becoming the author of it. Here's another truth. The pain that once broke you will one day guide someone else. The lessons you're learning now, the strength you're building in silence, will become someone else's roadmap. Because nothing you've been through is wasted. Every hurt holds a message. Every scar holds wisdom. And when you start living from that truth, your pain turns into purpose. Here's a story. A man named Caleb grew up with a father who was never there. He promised himself he'd be different. But as he got older, he realized how much of that absence still lived inside him. He felt it in his relationships, in his fears, in the way he ran from connection. One day, while talking to a friend, he said, "I don't even know what a good father looks like." And his friend replied, "Then you get to define it." Those words stayed with him. Years later, he became a father himself. He still had doubts, still had moments of fear, but every day he showed up. Every day he chose presence. Because becoming the person you needed means breaking cycles, not because it's easy, but because you refuse to pass down the same pain you carried. Sometimes the person you needed wasn't even real. They were a dream, a hope, an idea of what love should feel like, and that's okay. Because now you have the power to become that idea, the compassion you longed for. Give it freely, the patience you needed. Practice it daily. The boundaries you never learned, build them now, because the healing you give to yourself is the healing that ripples into everything around you. Here's something most people never realize. When you become the person you needed, you stop searching for closure because you are the closure. You stop asking for permission because you trust your voice. You stop waiting for someone to come back and make it right because you've already made peace with it yourself. That's what maturity looks like. Self-parenting the parts of you that the world forgot. Here's a quiet truth. You can't love yourself through perfection. You love yourself through patience, the same patience you wish others had given you, the same grace you used to beg for. Now it's yours to give, to the mirror, to your mistakes, to your healing. That's what it means to evolve, not to become someone else, but to finally come home to yourself. Becoming the person you needed also means setting boundaries, because sometimes love means walking away. Sometimes healing means saying, "I won't repeat this again." You can be kind and still say no. You can be compassionate and still protect your peace. You can forgive without inviting chaos back in. That's not selfishness. That's self-respect. You're no longer trying to fix others. You're finally learning how to care for yourself. Here's your practice for this week. Ask yourself who you needed when you were younger. Was it someone patient? Someone who listened? Someone who believed in you? Now become that person. Speak to yourself the way they would have. Encourage yourself the way they should have. Give what you wanted to yourself and to the world. Because you can't heal by waiting for someone else to fill the gaps. You heal by realizing you've become what you were missing. Here's a final story. A woman named Lonnie used to hate the word healing. She thought it meant moving on, as if she had to forget everything that had happened to her. But over time, she learned that healing wasn't forgetting. It was remembering without breaking. And one day she looked in the mirror and realized the person staring back was strong, kind, peaceful. Everything she had needed years ago. That's when she finally smiled and said, "I made it." Becoming the person you needed isn't a single act. It's a way of living. It's how you speak to yourself, how you show up for others, how you carry your pain with purpose instead of pity. It's how you take everything that once broke you and use it to build something beautiful. Nothing changes until you do. And the most powerful change you can ever make is becoming the version of yourself that your past self desperately needed to see. Because healing isn't just about moving forward. It's about finally becoming whole. The protector, the nurturer, the strength you've always deserved. You are not who you were. You are who you chose to become, and that choice, now that quiet, courageous choice, changes everything. Chapter 10. Living as your new self. There comes a point in your journey when healing turns into living, when you're no longer chasing change, but embodying it. You stop trying to prove how far you've come, and instead, you start being the proof. Because transformation isn't complete when you fix the past. It's complete when you begin to live differently because of it. You've learned. You've grown. You've shed the old layers of guilt, fear, and control. Now, it's time to step fully into who you've become, your new self. Living as your new self means no longer shrinking to fit old versions of you. You no longer apologize for evolving. You no longer feel guilty for outgrowing people or places that can't come with you. You no longer confuse peace with boredom or chaos with passion. You start choosing what actually aligns with your soul, not what temporarily soothes your ego, because your new self isn't just healed, it's aware. It's intentional. It's free. The old you survived by reacting. The new you thrives by responding. The old you sought validation. The new you creates it from within. The old you feared change. The new you lives through it with trust. This is growth, not a moment, but a way of being. It's the quiet confidence that comes when you know you no longer need to prove your worth. You're finally living it. Here's the truth. You won't always feel transformed. There will be days when old patterns whisper again, when fear tries to pull you back, when doubt reminds you of who you used to be. That's okay. Growth doesn't erase your past. It simply means you've learned how to navigate it differently. You don't need to be perfect to stay aligned. You just need to be aware enough to choose better, because awareness is the compass that keeps your new self on course. Here's a story. A man named Aaron used to think transformation meant never struggling again, that once he healed, life would be easy. No setbacks, no doubt, no pain. But life still tested him. Old wounds resurfaced. Triggers appeared. The difference was, this time he didn't run. He paused, breathed, responded with compassion instead of anger. And in that moment he realized he hadn't gone backward. He had evolved, because growth isn't about never falling. It's about rising differently every time you do. Living as your new self means you stop waiting for peace and start creating it. You stop chasing happiness as a destination and start finding joy in small moments, a quiet morning, a meaningful conversation, a decision that honors your boundaries. You realize that the life you were searching for wasn't somewhere out there. It was always within you, waiting for you to align with it. Your new self understands something your old self didn't. You don't need to control everything to feel safe. You don't need to rush to prove your worth. You don't need to hold on to what's gone to feel complete. You finally trust life and yourself enough to let it unfold. That's peace. That's power. That's presence. Here's another story. A woman named Naomi spent years healing. Therapy, journaling, meditation. She did it all. But one day, she realized she was using healing as a hiding place. She was so focused on fixing herself that she'd forgotten how to live. So she stopped waiting for the perfect version of herself to arrive and started living as she was. Flaws, scars, wisdom, and all. And that's when her life truly began again. Because healing isn't a destination. It's a doorway. And beyond that doorway is life. Messy, beautiful, unpredictable life. Living as your new self means understanding that peace doesn't mean nothing happens. It means you're no longer destroyed by what happens. You handle challenges differently. You recover faster. You forgive sooner. You trust deeper. Because your new self no longer fights every storm. You've learned to dance in the rain. Here's something to remember. You don't have to announce your growth. It shows in how you move, how you speak, how you choose. Your energy changes quietly, less proving, more presence. People may notice. Some will respect it. Some will question it. Some will leave, and that's okay. Because your new self isn't built on pleasing people. It's built on pleasing your peace. Here's a simple truth. The person you used to be built the foundation. The person you are now builds the future. You needed every version of yourself to get here. The broken one, the lost one, the hopeful one, the rebuilding one. They were all necessary. They were all teachers. And now it's your turn to live the lesson. Living as your new self means embodying everything you've learned. When challenges come, you respond with patience. When uncertainty hits, you choose trust. When fear whispers, you answer with faith. You stop needing to escape your life and start fully experiencing it. Every high, every low, every quiet in between. Because that's what it means to live consciously. To participate in your life instead of surviving it. Here's your practice for this week. Pause before reacting. Old patterns rush. The new you responds with intention. Protect your peace. If something costs your energy but gives no meaning, it's too expensive. Celebrate your quiet wins. Growth isn't loud, it's consistent. Speak kindly to yourself. You've come too far to use your old language of self-doubt. Every small act of awareness reinforces who you've become. Here's a final story. A man named Leo had spent years chasing success. Money, recognition, validation, he achieved it all. But still, he felt empty. Until one day, sitting in silence, he realized success had never been the goal. Alignment was. He didn't need more. He needed meaning, so he slowed down. He simplified his life. He started giving more than he took, and in doing so, he found what he'd been searching for all along: himself. Living as your new self means embodying peace instead of chasing it. It means choosing growth even when no one sees it. It means showing up every day as the healed, honest, grounded version of you. Not for validation, but because it's who you've become. You don't perform anymore. You live. You don't fight life. You flow with it. You don't search for yourself. You are yourself. Nothing changes until you do. And now that you have, everything will. You've learned to face your truth, to release your excuses, to embrace discomfort, to take responsibility, to rebuild trust, to act with discipline, to let go, to accept, to heal, to become, and now you live. This is your new beginning. This is your peace. This is your power. Welcome home. You made it here. To the end of this journey and the beginning of another, because nothing truly ends when you grow. It simply transforms. You started this audiobook looking for guidance, maybe for motivation, maybe for clarity, maybe for peace. But what you found was something deeper, yourself. Every chapter has led you back to one truth, that change doesn't begin with circumstance. It begins with you. You are not broken. You're becoming, you're not behind. You're exactly where growth needs you to be. And maybe for the first time, you finally see it, that every obstacle was shaping you, every delay was preparing you, and every struggle was building the version of you that could handle the life you once dreamed of. Change was never about fixing what was wrong with you. It was about remembering what's right within you. The discipline, the courage, the awareness, they were always there, waiting for you to stop doubting your strength and start using it. Because when you changed how you saw yourself, you changed how you showed up for your life, and that changed everything. The old you needed control. The new you walks with trust. The old you chased validation. The new you lives in alignment. The old you feared failure. The new you sees it as feedback. You've learned that peace isn't found by avoiding pain. It's found by understanding it. You've learned that healing isn't a finish line. It's a lifelong conversation with yourself. And you've learned that growth doesn't make you someone new. It helps you remember who you've always been. So now, as you step forward, don't wait for the world to change. Be the one who does. Live with intention. Speak with honesty. Move with purpose. You don't need permission to begin again. You already have everything you need. Clarity, courage, and the quiet confidence that comes from knowing you can trust yourself to rise again and again. Remember this, nothing changes until you do. But once you do, everything begins to move with you. Your mindset, your habits, your energy, your future, because change isn't something that happens to you. It's something that starts within you and radiates outward. You are the shift. You are the lesson. You are the proof. Take one last deep breath. This isn't the end of your healing. It's the beginning of your living. You've done the work. You've faced the mirror. You've reclaimed your power. Now it's time to live like it. Walk in your truth. Honor your peace. And never forget, you are the change you've been waiting for.